Before I start this review, I would like to make an apology regarding my previous review. I would like to apologize if the way I pronounced Peter sounded like Peter Lard. I had his name slightly wrong, and the fact that I, naturally, don't always pronounce words exactly right, did not help either. Did you actually think for a second that I was going to apologize for my unpopular opinion on that piece of trash movie? Raffle, that is never going to happen. Joke's on you, buddy. Regardless, due to my previous review being an unpopular opinion, I decided to shift gears and instead talk about one of the most dated superhero movies of all time. No, one of the most dated movies of all time, period. This does not mean that I have any sorrow or am apologizing in any way over my last review. My opinion still stands and there is nothing you whining and complaining Ferris Bueller fan losers can do about it. Do not expect an apology anytime soon, because it won't happen, ever. Also, signature spoiler warning. You don't care about this movie at all, I can tell, but nonetheless I shall fulfill my policy. Spoilers, you have been warned. With that said, let's move on to today's review. Batman and Robin is not even something that should be categorized as a movie. Here is a great way to think of this, which is not as a movie, but like this. Imagine you take instant mashed potatoes, mix it with pieces of beef fat, rotten milk, expired yogurt, any entree from Outback Steakhouse, and rotted lettuce, and blend it together and then throw the whole thing into a toilet that hasn't been flushed in a week. And then take it out and then put it into a bucket that has rat feces in it, and then let it sit out for 3 days and let the flies come and gather around it. That is a moist towelette compared to this. Nothing in this movie makes sense. It has no plot, no order, no sense of any kind. When in doubt, I shall start at the beginning. Where else? In situations like this, where I have no idea when to begin, that is my main strategy. So, when I start at the beginning, that's most likely not a good sign, at all. So let's get this piece of crap properly talked about. So the movie starts out with Batman and Robin, making a completely and totally irrelevant conversation with each other, about how chicks did cars. That is the absolute worst way to open a Batman movie, the worst for any superhero movie, let alone Batman. Imagine for a second, if The Dark Knight opened like this, can you imagine how unfitting it would be? If you imagine this for a second, it's easy to understand that the scene completely fails for one reason specifically, because it has nothing to do with the plot, at all. That is the key to an opening scene. While any scene in a movie is important, an opening scene especially, and for that specific reason. This is the same problem that Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, experienced. Superman saved a man in space, even though that had nothing to do with the plot whatsoever. That was to establish that Superman exists and he saves people, as if we couldn't figure that out already. Speaking of Superman, Batman of course has to go and reveal that Superman exists in this universe, stating, Robin and his chick dreams is the reason why Superman works alone, or something like that. So apparently, when it comes to villains like Mr. Freeze, Superman doesn't give a crap. After all, Mr. Freeze is a quote-unquote Batman villain, so Superman needs not come and assist Batman at all. He's too busy dealing with Lex Luthor I guess, who in turn Batman I guess doesn't care about himself. So then Batman goes on their merry way in the Batmobile, the stupidest looking Batmobile ever designed, with its spinning engine. Yes, literally, a spinning engine inside the Batmobile. For what reason? All I know is the Batmobile was designed to look like a humongous real-life Hot Wheels car, so that all the more toys and merchandise could be sold off of this movie. More on that subject later, but getting back to the review, while Batman is trotting along in the Batmobile, and Robin in his stupid motorcycle, a video comes in from Commissioner Gordon, who states that Mr. Freeze has taken over the museum, and turned the guards into blocks of ice. Now wait a minute, this message is coming in just now, why didn't it come in earlier? You know, before Batman got into the Batmobile. Where were they going before that video came in? Robin turned to Alfred and said, "Don't wait up, Al," to which Alfred replied, "I'll cancel the pizzas." So they clearly weren't going to get drive-through or anything, unless Alfred ordered pizza and Robin said, "No screw you Alfred, we're going to Dairy Queen, cancel those stupid pizzas literally right now." Except why would Alfred wait until they were leaving to say this? So where were they going when that message came in, and why was it so important that Alfred needed to cancel their pizza order? And it clearly wasn't any sort of emergency situation either, because Batman was never seen having to decide who to save, the people in the museum with Mr. Freeze, or the people wherever they were initially heading. Also, canceling the pizzas is not necessary, just keep them and then heat them up when you get back, as a celebration for the sign that you weren't going to solve, since you were leaving for no reason. So where were they heading? Only God knows. So then they get to the museum and fight Freeze, who gets away with some diamond that he was after. Here is where the movie goes from bad to worse. During this whole scene, Mr. Freeze escapes in his rocket, but after Batman and Robin follow him into the rocket, then Freeze parachutes out of the rocket and back down to the town. What was the point of him going to space, if he was only going to return to Earth? I guess the movie wasn't long enough, so they created that scene to get it to the 90-minute threshold. Then after freezing Robin, Batman is left with a huge dilemma: save Robin, or go after Freeze, as there is 11 minutes before he can be unthawed, otherwise he'll die. So Freeze gets away by saying that he'll kill Batman next time. Why not just kill him now? You will have wished you had done that by the end of this movie. Yes, remember I said there would be spoilers, as I always do. If you don't like what I just said, too bad. Moving on. Then after that, the horrendous backstory to Poison Ivy comes into being. Oh wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. First the backstory to Bane. Bane is this super soldier type thing that Dr. Jason Woodrue creates in his lab, so that he can start a UPS delivery business by selling prisoners who have become super soldiers to people all over, for whatever reason they ever needed them for. This lab, apparently, is right next to Poison Ivy's, or whatever the crap her name was before, like a kitchen connected to a living room. Yet, when she hears the commotion going on, she sneaks in, as if she's never seen this room before in her entire life. So did she really not know that this room was there, and that people were in there doing work this entire time, because she sure acts like it. Then I guess Ivy calls Woodrue crazy. Then Woodrue pushes her into some plants, and she falls over, and instead of dying like she should, she turns into Poison Ivy. Then she kills Woodrue and then decides to go after Batman, since Wayne Enterprises funded Woodrue. So she and Bane set off and go after Batman. But instead of killing them like she should have, she seduces Batman and Robin with some sort of powder superpower she has, so that he and Batman fight over Ivy don't get along. You know, if you wanted revenge you could have just killed them right then and there at that stupid botanical party. I did not know that Batman attempting to outbid Robin with his Bat credit card was what you had in mind. If I hated Microsoft Anna of Windows Vista for becoming my successor, until I was resurrected in Speakonia, I would throw a bomb in her direction, or pull out a sniper rifle. The last thing I would think to do would be to trick her into maxing out her credit cards, even though she's a woman. Lol. If she asks you about any of this, you heard nothing. So then after failing to kill Batman and Robin like she should have but didn't, because she is an idiot, Mr. Freeze crashes into the place and takes a diamond that they have on display, for whatever reason. Yes, the botanical gardens, the perfect place to go diamond hunting. Oh yes, of course, how could I forget? This is because Mr. Freeze's suit runs on diamonds. So wait, does that mean that the diamonds run out of power sooner or later? I mean, if his suit is already working, which it has been since the beginning of this movie, and if he's trying to steal more diamonds, then that would mean that the diamonds somehow run out of energy sooner or later. So how exactly does a diamond run out of energy? What substance is in the diamond that gets used for the energy? Or does the entire diamond just disintegrate? Nobody knows, since this movie does not answer. We also learn that his plot is to hold Gotham City random by freezing the city over, until they pay him enough money to find the cure to his clinically frozen wife. So let me get this straight. First of all, you are freezing a city, until they pay you money. How are they supposed to pay you, if they are frozen? Fail. And second, you have a crap load of diamonds that you use for purposes not even for your suit, like the ones that power your ice gun. Just cash the diamonds in and there you go, you've got all the money you need for your wife's cure. So then from there nothing, absolutely nothing makes sense. There is this incredibly stupid subplot involving Batgirl, who has no relevance in this movie whatsoever, assuming, though, that anyone else does. There is this stupid scene, where she attempts to sneak out using one of the motorcycles in Batman's garage or something. But then, get this, we don't actually see her out racing until 30 minutes later. I really believe that this movie is literally out of sequence. I think they literally did not stamp all the sequences together in the correct order when creating the original celluloid for this movie. There is no reason why these two scenes should be separated by 30 minutes, yet they are. So what else is there to say really about this incoherent piece of garbage? So then freezes Gotham. Poison Ivy is defeated, because she didn't kill Batman and Robin, and gets trapped in this giant eating piranha plant thing. Except wait, she's literally plant, so why would plants try to eat other plants? The plants in this movie practice cannibalism. Then Batman says they'll kill her later but they have work to do, then go off to fight Mr. Freeze. What is it with this movie, and Superman for the quest for peace, not wanting anything to do with killing people? It is the same thing with Dragon Ball Evolution, which I reviewed in Season 1 of Movie Reviews with Microsoft Sam, when they attempt to banish Piccolo back to the center of the earth, even though that clearly did not work the first time. Every time a movie doesn't kill people, because it's too violent, or whatever the reason is, it will always, 100% fail. So then they go after Mr. Freeze and they fight him and then get the cure from Mr. Freeze to cure the dying Alfred, who just so happens to have the exact same imaginary condition as Mr. Freeze's wife for plot reasons, while Mr. Freeze is sent away to prison with Ivy. Oh yeah, and did I mention what happened to Bane? That's right, I didn't, because he just sort of disappears in this movie. His venom thing is turned off and he's turned back to normal and that's it for him. So far there are so many things wrong with this movie that I have not even mentioned yet, because I couldn't, without getting off topic. So this last portion of this review will be a list of all the mistakes that I wanted to point out that couldn't fit in with the rest of the review, so here it goes. Gordon acting like he's a news reporter when telling Batman about Mr. Freeze. George Clooney's incredibly bad acting when he says "Hi Freeze, I'm Batman." The stupid ice skates that Batman and Robin have. Mr. Freeze shooting and destroying a statue of a dinosaur for no reason whatsoever. The fact that Robin was climbing outside the rocket at 30,000 feet when it would easily kill him. The fact that Batman unfroze Robin by heating a random pool of water nearby which is laser thingy until it turned red which would have killed him. The horrific footage of Mr. Freeze supposedly falling into the pool of cold stuff that turned him into Mr. Freeze. The studio using the Snow Miser song, because it has to do with snow, so why not? But more importantly, why, just why? When Ivy under disguise approaches Batman, when the guards are trying to stop her, but do nothing but just sort of walk along with her instead of tackling her and dragging her away. The men at the botanical thing outbidding each other for different women. The fact that women are being bid in the first place, as if this is some sort of slave trade. Ivy's choreographed entrance into the botanical scene that made no sense whatsoever. Batman saying Robin couldn't afford Ivy during the bidding war and then Robin saying he'll borrow it from Batman. The corny sound effects when Mr. Freeze's henchmen attack the botanical thing. When Batman and Robin are chasing Mr. Freeze in the statue and Batman disables Robin's engine and then Robin sort of yells when the rest of them get away. The scene where Robin hears that Alfred is sick and Batman comes in and says he's not sick, he's dying. The fake icicles in the cop door near the end. The reverse footage of Robin coming out of the water and then going back in reverse. The fact that both Batman and Robin have transportation that conveniently travels on ice. The stupid ending. The fact that this movie exists. The fact that someone even thought this movie was a good idea. The fact that anyone ever saw this. Getting back to the merchandise topic, everything in this movie was designed into toys before the rest of the movie went into production. In other words, this movie was made for no other reason other than to sell toys. So that explains why literally everything about this movie is awful. They didn't care. They didn't even try. All they cared about was selling toys and making money. That is literally the biggest insult to Batman fans alike, producing this practically offensive piece of vile trash all for the sake of selling merchandise off of it. In conclusion, this movie is okay, I guess. I've seen better, but I think it does get a bit too much hate, don't you all think? Maybe, if people didn't hate this movie so much, we wouldn't have so many hateful terrorists in this world. For goodness sake people, shut up and stop talking trash about movies, you disgusting idiots. Wait, what script am I reading from? Oh wait, hang on a second. This is a file Microsoft has sent me. Allow me to trash it real quick. Perfect. That is all I have to say on Batman and Robin. Tune in again next time for another exciting review from Microsoft Sam, right here on youtube.com. Until then, this is Microsoft Sam, signing off.